Oh, I need a haircut. All right. So, email. I'm an 18-year-old who's been fully committed to recovery for a relatively short, intense bout of anorexia. I find myself being quite secretive at home about that junk food I've been stuffing my face with for the past week or so. I'm feeling guilty and weirdly hostile about putting it on shopping lists, etc., since I still live at home with my mum and little sister. I don't know why, as I've never had feelings of shame around what types of food I wanted to have in the house before. I'm trying to figure out how not to eat in secret or feeling shameful about people seeing me eat in general. It's making me feel especially shitty that I've never craved foods that I crave now. In fact, I never really had food cravings at all until my eating disorder took over. If you end up seeing this and answering, thank you. All right, so dude, all of this stuff, like this kind of weird shit that our eating disorders make us do, it's super interesting, and it's these weird little details that actually first got me thinking along the lines of how biological this is and how things must have evolved and how it must be biologically programmed, because quite a few of us just do these weird little things, like being secretive around food that we consider high value. So, which is weird, you think, because if you think about it logically, you're like, well, my mum and my sister aren't going to be mad at me for eating this food. They're not going to judge me for it. They'll probably be thrilled that I'm eating this food. And then you think about it logically, and like, logically, I'm not even ashamed that I'm eating this food. Like, this part of my brain doesn't have a problem with me eating junk food. So why do I feel like I have to hide away and eat it in secret? Now, that's just, and plenty of us do that. I did the same sort of shit. And so then you've got to look at it. Okay, so really, that's super interesting that so many people with anorexia stash, hoard, and hide and are secretive around food that we consider high value. What is that like? That is like a squirrel, isn't it? That is trying to stash away food and keep it for itself. And for most of us, what we tend to be like that with is the food, like I said, we consider it high value. So your brain is like, dude, I need calories really badly. This is important. This is the stuff that I really want. This is the gold dust food, the junk food, as you call it, the food that's high in calories. And so because your survival brain, your primitive brain, your caveman brain thinks that there's a famine in the environment, then what it's doing is it's going, don't let anybody else know. I gotta have it all for myself. Quick. That's exactly what your brain is doing around those foods. And the good news is that when you come out of energy deficit and your brain no longer thinks that food is scarce, it won't have to be like this about food. It can just be like, there's loads of food, everyone can have some. Come and get a Snickers bar. And so that's what I found happen anyway. So when my brain thinks that food is scarce, I'm like, little squirrel running off, hiding my food, and eating myself. Don't let anybody know. That's what I was like around like the food that I really liked. And now that my brain is out of energy deficit, I'm like, sure, have some, take some. Yeah, I'll have some too. Yeah, great, relaxed. So there's nothing wrong with your brain. It's functioning really well if you're in a famine. It's hiding the food that it wants for you so that you can have it. Because your brain believes that food is scarce, not your logical brain, primitive brain, brainstem area. Don't worry about the logical brain. Logical brain knows that food is not scarce, but the brainstem area is like, well, evidently food is scarce because I ain't getting enough of it. So that's why that happens, according to moi, and it'll go away if you keep eating. All right. Ooh, it's quite a lot of questions. You guys, recovery bakes. I'm good. How are you? God, all right, I don't know. I don't have much time, and I just went on about squirrels and like hoarding food for a long time. Heather Jeffrey says, hi, Tabitha. Do you think the eating disorder thoughts ever fully go away? Do you think that you can be fully recovered and still have thoughts? I'm hoping this won't be part of my thought process forever. Well, obviously, I can only talk from my experience, but from my experience, oh, yes. You know, like things that I thought that I'd done for so long and I thought for so long that I just thought could never go away. Things like counting calories. Like, I used to just be able to look at a food and I would just know how many calories were in it. It's not like I even tried. It's not like I even thought, oh, I wonder how many calories are in that food. I just would look at a food and my brain would go, there are X amount of calories in that food. It used to drive me crazy that it did that, but it did that. My brain doesn't do that anymore. Like, it wouldn't even occur to me to try and work out how many calories are in a food. It just wouldn't even enter my head. It would just be like, it would enter my head as much as it would enter my head to, oh, I don't know, dye my hair purple, which doesn't enter my head, I have to admit. Nothing against purple hair. Like, if you have purple hair, great. But that's just not something that I think about very often. And I probably now have thought about purple hair more than I have thought about counting calories today. So short answer is yes, but you do have to rewire it. The way that I got my brain to stop thinking about calories is I refused to let my brain think about calories, and I had to be really on it for a long time. And I had to teach my brain calories are not important. And the way that you teach your brain that something is not important is by not paying attention to it, mental or action or any sort of attention. So it's not like it magically just happens. We do have to rewire the brain, but it also gets way easier to rewire the brain as you come out of energy deficit. So the short answer to your question is yes. And full recovery should be that. Full recovery is the thoughts are gone. That's full recovery, according, again, to me. That is not everybody's definition of full recovery. And many people don't think that full recovery is even possible, which means I'm lying. I'm not. All right. Okay. One more. God, I don't even know where to start. Why is everybody's on today? Like, sometimes no one's asking questions very much. And now I'm just like, ugh. All right. Elsa says, how do you know if you have a problem to begin with and should follow your advice around eating, especially when you haven't restricted severely? It doesn't, like, your brain doesn't care. You're like, for example, your primitive brain is just thinking about what's going on with you and your body. So your primitive brain doesn't care if you, according to somebody else's judgment, restricted severely or as much, or if you didn't restrict as much as the next person that's got anorexia, because your primitive brain doesn't give a fuck about the next person that's got anorexia. Your primitive brain is just like, this is all about me. Our primitive brains are wonderfully selfish in that sense. And so this is just between you, your body, and your brain. It doesn't matter. There's no comparison. So all we need to know is that you did restrict food, didn't you? So therefore, as far as your primitive brain is concerned, that's a huge fucking problem. And if you're watching this YouTube channel, then obviously you're not thrilled with your life right now. Like, things aren't going swimmingly. There's probably a load of shit in your head around food and movement and all this stuff all the time that's just driving you crazy. And so it doesn't matter if you're like, well, maybe this is driving me crazy, but maybe it's not quite as crazy as this other person over here or somebody else commenting on there. So maybe I don't need to do anything. None of the comparisons matter. The only thing that matters is your damn life. And so if you're not happy with the way things are going with your relationship with food and the fact that you're restricting and the thing that you probably might somehow or ish have an eating disorder, then just stop restricting, which is my advice always to everyone. And so, short answer, absolutely yes, I do think that you should. Guys, I've got to go. I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, love you. Bye.